Hi, attorney. Attorney Cayosa.
Baka hindi siya naka-join sa audio. Kanina, sumagot na nga. Baka nag-mute ulit.
Okay, sabay shot lang.
I was talking about my own SALN. I'm perfectly willing to release it. But ang sinasabi ko, yun na nga, ang pinagbasihan ko, ang experience natin ang experience ko sa impeachment trial ni Chief Justice Corona na ginamit lang pampolitika yung SALN. Kaya sinasabi ko, kung talagang may kaso, kung may mali ang pagkagawa, let us go to the proper authorities. Kung talaga may kaso, dalhin nyo sa ombudsman. Huwag lang kung kani-kanino kasi baka gamitin lang sa ibang bagay yan. Alam naman natin kung anong mga nangyayari dyan eh.
You saw another snippet of presidential aspirant Bongbong Marcos' interview on 1PH sa Totoo Lang. This time, Marcos flip-flopped on his stance regarding the release of statements of assets, liabilities, and net worth, or SALN. He says he is personally willing to release his own, but as a matter of policy, he would rather limit SALN access to select authorities.
Marcos Jr. cited the case of former Chief Justice Renato Corona as to how SALNs may be used to attack political opponents. But a former ombudsman believes there's more abuse to be had if access to SALNs are curtailed. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Robbie Alampa. You're watching The Big Story. On a personal level, Ferdinand Marcos Jr. might be amenable to releasing his SALN, but should he become president, he would rather limit access to select government agencies.
But as early as now, even in recent years, access to SALNs has become more and more of a challenge, even as the law dictates that it should be made accessible. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro gives us a front seat to the big story.
If he wins the presidency in 2022, former Senator Ferdinand Marcos Jr. wants to keep the statement of assets, liabilities, and net worth of government officials away from the public eye. In an interview with the program Sa Totoo Lang on 1PH, Marcos claimed that SALNs have long been misused to target political opponents.
Kung ako, kalabang kita sa politika, o sa whatever, basta kalabang kita, pag binigay mo sa akin yung SALN mo, hahanapan ko talaga ng problema yan.
Marcos said access to SALNs should only be restricted to select government agencies. Marcos cited the case of former Chief Justice Renato Corona, who was impeached because of his SALN. Marcos's family had also run afoul of SALNs when the Supreme Court forfeited more than $650 million in Swiss bank accounts because they were grossly disproportionate to the legitimate salary of former President Ferdinand Marcos. The ousted president's SALN stated he only had 120,000 pesos in assets in 1965. Personally, however, Bongbong Marcos claimed that he was willing to share his SALN.
Kung talaga may kaso, dalhin nyo sa ombudsman. Huwag lang kung kani-kanino kasi baka gamitin lang sa ibang bagay yan.
The statement raised a howl of protest from civil society groups. Under the Code of Conduct for Public Officials, all public officials and employees are required to submit their asset declarations every year. The law states that SALNs be made accessible to the public.
For example, Arroyo and even Duterte and some the others, merong increase in their assets and net worth, liabilities and net worth. And I think the public are entitled to know how they increase their wealth that much.
Former Ombudsman Conchita Carpio Morales said the potential for abuse of SALNs does not outweigh the potential for abuse if SALNs are kept from the public eye.
If people believe that you have assets and liabilities which is not probably in accordance with what you earn as a government or employee, you can always explain it, di ba?
Morales said the disclosure of SALN is supposed to build the trust of the public that their hard-earned taxes are being used for quality service and not pocketed by unscrupulous officials. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro, We Are One News.
Well, presidential aspirant Bongbong Marcos releases SALN, or more importantly, should he? That big question and more with former President of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, Attorney Domingo Cayosa. Attorney Cayosa, welcome po to the big story.
Good evening, Robbie, and good evening to your viewers.
Attorney Cayosa, sabi po ni Ferdinand Marcos Jr., pagka raw hayaan yung kung sino-sino, pati media, civil society, kahit sino pa, to access a SALN, baka raw iharas lang yung mga politiko, baka lang daw manggulo lang sa trabaho nila. What is right or what is wrong with that argument?
Well, yung ganyang pag-iisip, that was already considered by the authors of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act, which requires submission and of SALN and making them public. That kind of argument was already considered by the framers of the 1987 Constitution, which makes it mandatory for public officials, public employees to file SALN, and nakalagay sa ating Constitution, Article 11, Section 17, they shall be made public. That was also considered already by members of Congress when they enacted the ethical standards for public officials, which says in one section that SALN shall be made available to the public within reasonable hours. So malinaw ang mga batas. Those arguments were already considered, but still the law provides that SALN should be submitted and should be made available to the public because the public has a right to know about the finances of public officials, and SALN and the filing of SALN has been proven in many other countries as one of the best practices to deter and curb graft and corruption in government.
Attorney Cayosa, you stressed you're required to file and, pati yung and, in-stress nyo, and make it available to the public. But why are we where we are right now, where in practice there is a very clear distinction between filing and giving the public access?
Well, it is very unfortunate, and it speaks so badly of the culture of our country and our lawmakers, because though the Constitution uses the imperative word shall be made public, the laws of the land, the anti-graft laws, make it a duty of government and a right of the people to know. Unfortunately, in the execution of these very clear laws, government in different departments, the Supreme Court, the executive branch, Congress, they have put so many restrictions and limitations, including the office of the Ombudsman, which is supposed to be the #1 promoter of transparency and accountability. If you remember, Robin, these different government bodies, high officials have come up with rules that make it practically impossible for people, including media, to gain access to these supposedly public documents.
Okay, so Attorney Cayosa, unfortunately we don't have a lot of time, but I have to ask this. I'm sure there is no short answer to this. Pero ano pong solusyon dyan? If, as you pointed out, the executive, the legislature, both houses of Congress, and for that matter, even the Supreme Court, and then now even the independent body that is the Ombudsman, everybody have really conspired to put up rules and regulations so as to make it practically impossible. Ano po ang redress ng public dito?
Well, what we're doing now, discussing is one, and we hope that it is made an election issue. We should ask those who are running for top positions of government their position on this, because it is a very potent measure against graft, but it is poorly implemented. So we hope it is an election issue this year.
Okay, maraming salamat po. That was former IBP President Attorney Domingo Cayosa. Talking about SALNs, President Rodrigo Duterte's SALNs since 2018 have yet to be made public, but here he is saying that he will name the most corrupt presidential bet before the elections. Duterte says he is obliged to tell the people what he knows to help them decide. The president, however, defends that he is in no way politicking. It's not clear when Duterte plans to inform the public, but he did drop hints saying one of the candidates really cannot be a president while another candidate can be elected president but is too corrupt.
Kailangan malaman ng tao because you are electing a president. Sino yung pinaka-corrupt na kandidato? I'm talking to you as your president. There are things such which you must know sa aking trabaho.
These are the other big stories tonight. Let's check in on where the other presidential candidates stand on various issues. Marcos Jr. says no to an international court's probe on the drug war, but Lacson says he's all for it. While maintaining that the Omicron variant is not yet the pandemic's endgame, the World Health Organization says we might actually exit COVID's acute phase this year. And pole vaulter EJ Obiena is set to jump for the Philippines in the Southeast Asian Games, even without Patafa's support. These big stories after the break.
If countries use all of these strategies and tools in a comprehensive way, we can end the acute phase of the pandemic this year. We can end COVID-19 as a global health emergency, and we can do it this year.
That was WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus. He is rallying countries to work together and bring the acute phase of this pandemic to an end. This as we enter the third year with COVID and face a critical juncture.
The WHO chief says we can end the acute phase of COVID-19 this year, but only if testing and vaccines are used in a comprehensive way. Ghebreyesus warns it is dangerous to assume that Omicron will be the last variant and that we are in the endgame. On the contrary, global conditions are ideal for more variants to emerge.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. Stealth Omicron, or a subvariant of Omicron, has been detected in the Philippines, but experts say there is nothing much to worry about.
But new findings also point to Omicron sticking longer on skin and on plastic surfaces. So how does this change our response? Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez gives us a front seat to this story.
The health department has detected cases of stealth Omicron or the BA.2 subvariant in the country. DOH Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere said the stealth Omicron is now predominant in most regions. But she stressed there's no significant difference between that one and the original Omicron variant, BA.1.
At kinakailangan pa rin po ng masusing pag-aaral dahil limitado pa rin naman ang ating mga obserbasyon na nakukuha dito.
A news report from Reuters said recent studies show that Omicron can survive longer than other variants, especially on plastics and skin. Though it has yet to be peer-reviewed, Japanese researchers say they found that the average survival time of Omicron is more than 193 hours or around 8 days, while average survival time of the said variant on skin samples such as cadavers lasted 21 hours. However, health experts say there's no cause for alarm. What's important is to strictly practice good hygiene.
For so long as malinis yung kamay natin, wala siyang paraan na tumalon para pumasok sa katawan natin.
At least 535 cases of Omicron have been confirmed in the Philippines. The UK Health Security Agency has designated the new Omicron variant BA.2 as a variant under investigation after it detected more than 400 cases in the country this year. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, We Are One News.
2 brands of self-test antigen kits have been approved by the Food and Drug Administration. FDA officer in charge Oscar Gutierrez says Abbott's Pan-Bio COVID-19 antigen self-test and Lab Innovation Technology SARS-CoV-2 antigen rapid test have been approved for use. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere says these self-test kits are designed for easier use compared to rapid antigen kits, which require help from healthcare workers. The FDA is advising the public to only avail of self-test kits at licensed drugstores and mind the expiration dates and instructions very carefully. 31 other brands are still under validation by the Research Institute for Tropical Medicine. Presidential aspirants continue to make the rounds, including Senator Ping Lacson, who had a one-on-one interview with talk show host Boy Abunda.
The senator says he is in favor of the International Criminal Court's probe on the Duterte government's war on drugs. A look at what the hopefuls have been up to in Julie Baiza's report.
These past days, the 2022 presidential candidates went under the microscope in several interviews. After skipping GMA7's presidential interviews, Bongbong Marcos defended himself in one PHS sa totoo lang.
Lahat naman hinaharap ko eh. Basta yun na nga, dahil ang mahalaga sa akin ay pag-usapan natin kung ano ang importante sa taong bayan.
Marcos Jr. also denied having a troll farm. When asked about political dynasty, he said that the most effective mechanism against it is the elections. He adds that voters would not vote for the same family if they do not want to. On letting the International Criminal Court probe the Duterte administration's war on drugs, this is what he had to say.
Hindi siguro, dahil pwede silang pumasok dito, ngunit magpaliwanag muna na bilang bisita.
But this is not the case for Senator Ping Lacson. In a one-on-one interview with Boy Abunda, Lacson said that he would not reject the ICC as it is the court of the powerless. Another presidential aspirant, Leody de Guzman, meanwhile was saddened by GMA7's statement that they only invited the frontrunners of the surveys.
Ang alam ko, may isang level lang inabot ng pagkakaunawaan, lalo na sa media, na nagpapalaganap tayo ng demokrasya at at the same time parang unti-unti na tayo nagdi-depart doon sa parang political o yung personality politics.
Some aspirants, on the other hand, are now busy with their own activities. The Office of the Vice President distributed post-vaccination kits at the Zamboanga Provincial Capital. As for Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, he released a resolution prohibiting public activities for the Chinese New Year. Mobile journalist Julie Baiza, We Are One News.
For the big story in sports, pole vaulter E.J. Obiena has been included in the Philippine delegation that will compete in the upcoming Southeast Asian Games. The Philippine Olympic Committee says it is taking steps to ensure Obiena can represent the country amid his ongoing feud with Patafa. Patafa said it will drop the world number 3 pole vaulter from the national pool and file an estafa case. It is also unclear if the Philippine Sports Commission will fund Obiena in the SEA Games in Hanoi, which is why POC President Bambo Tolentino says Obiena is included in a group of 80 athletes whose campaigns will be privately funded. Obiena is the reigning Southeast Asian Games champion in pole vault and is also the favorite to win gold after having reset the Asian record in September 2021. Time for another quick break. When we return, we give you a peek of the ballot for the 2022 elections. Who's there and who's not? Well, we'll find out. Hacked accounts. A number of teachers have fallen victim to a phishing expedition after accounts at Landbank of the Philippines were compromised. And stuck at home? Well, if COVID restrictions are keeping you from traveling, why not let the destination come to you? We listen in to the Tourism Department's ASMR tour. More details after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. At least 20 teachers have fallen victim to a phishing incident and reported losing money from their payroll accounts in Landbank.
The lender is already looking into the matter but says it might not be able to return the missing funds as the transactions were deemed valid. Marlene Alcaide with the story.
Last November 3, teacher William Montecalvo woke up to several one-time password messages from his bank, Landbank of the Philippines. Upon checking his account online, all his money was already gone.
Makaawa talaga ako dun sa guardia na tignan yung account ko kasi nauubos parang may nag-hack. Pagdating ko roon, yun, sinabi sa akin na nag-push through daw yung transaction at nakuha na yung pera.
Certain that he never used the OTPs, Montecalvo tried to appeal his case, but the bank said the transactions were performed using a valid online username and password. Landbank says it cannot act on his request to return the missing funds.
Masamang hulog po, hindi ako nakakatulog. Yung pera ho na yan, naipon yan dahil nagtitipid kami. Katasabi ko nga ho, bilang ordinary teacher,
But it wasn't just teacher William. Crisanto Cruz also had the same experience. Last December 30, Crisanto received messages from Landbank with an OTP to access his payroll account. But by then, it was already too late as his savings, including his Christmas bonus and benefits, were all gone.
Marami akong utang may mga dues pa ako na hindi ko pa nababayaran para ako maging pensionado.
This also happened to teacher Jonaline. The money she saved up for her daughter's tuition was all gone.
Mahirap ko daw mabawi kasi nga may OTP. Sabi ko, paano naman nangyari yun? Ganun na lang po yun.
Some 20 teachers in total claimed that they lost their money through unauthorized online bank transfers. The Teachers Dignity Coalition is now seeking the assistance of the Education Department. The agency, however, said that they have yet to receive a formal complaint on the matter. Landbank, meanwhile, has denied any form of hacking in their system. The bank claims that the teachers lost their funds due to an isolated phishing incident. For a cyber expert, the public must be more vigilant online. This can be done by not clicking links sent by unverified email or SMS.
Pag binuksan nyo yung isang paa nyo, nandun na sa hukay ng fraudster. Yun. Pero pag hindi mo binuksan yon, you will not be initiating the fraud.
For News 5, Marlene Alcaide, we are One News.
We give you a peek of the ballots for the 2022 polls released by Comelec, which contains the final list of candidates. On the Comelec's list of presidential candidates so far, we have former presidential spokesperson Ernesto Abella, Labor leader Caliodi de Guzman, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, former Defense Chief Norberto Gonzales, businessman Faisal Mangundadato, Dr. Jose Montemayor Jr., Senator Sping Lacson and Manny Pacquiao, former Senator Bongbong Marcos Jr., and Vice President Leni Robredo. 9 names, meanwhile, are on the vice presidential list. They are Buhay Representative Lito Atienza, former Congressman Walden Bello, Rizalito David, Manny Lopez, Carlos Serapio, Dr. Willie Ong, Senate President Vicente Soto III, Senator Kiko Pangilinan, and Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte Carpio. Vice Presidential aspirant Wilson Ahmad and senatorial aspirant Norman Marquez were not included in the ballot, even after having secured a restraining order from the Supreme Court after Comelec declared them as nuisance candidates. 64 names will compete for the 12 seats in the Senate. And although the ballot ends at 178 party list groups, only 177 groups made it to the final cut. Noticeably, the ballot skipped number 96, which is the number allotted for the Malasakit Movement party list of former MMDA spokesperson Celine Pialago. The party list group has a pending appeal before the Supreme Court.
If you miss the sights and sounds of travel, then this one's for you. The Tourism Department has launched its newest project to entice travelers to visit and see the beauty of the Philippines. It's called ASMR Experience the Philippines.
Of course, for those who aren't familiar with ASMR, it stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. And it does exactly what it promises. It lets you experience these travel destinations through immersive videos and sounds. The initial 4 ASMR videos that will be launched feature the mountain province in the Cordilleras. The first video, which has already been posted on the DOT's YouTube channel, features a walk in the town of Barlig and its amazing terraces.
After the mountain province, the succeeding video series will explore Ilocos Norte, then destinations in Visayas and Mindanao. For the best viewing and listening experience, remember to use your earphones.
Ang galing. Nakapunta na ako doon. Ganun talaga yung pakiramdam mo.
No, ako rin. Feeling ko that's the same area that we went up as well.
Meron kayang ano, yung shades
Mga
and
virtual,
glasses?
no? Pwede, malamang. Siguro, I mean, that's something probably you could suggest to the Department of Tourism.
O, diba? Para feel na feel natin. But it's good to be able to actually explore the Philippines and list down the places that you want to go to pagkatapos ng pandemic, pag natapos na to, di ba?
No, absolutely. Ramdam mo yung gigil ng mga tao, di ba?
Oh, but don't forget to stay away from the screens from time to time and rest your eyes. And see people, talk to people. Speaking of which, gusto ko lang batiin yung mami ko. Happy birthday!
Happy birthday po!
Happy birthday po! Uuwi na ako para mag-party na tayo. That wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. We are One News. Have a good evening.